Hey, it's Joyce. You are on the block party in Ernie's Corner, and it's always exciting and fun to have award-winning creative director and designer Ernie Cefalu. And Ernie, Alice Cooper continues to amaze us. Not only on the block party is he one of our most requested artists, but who would have thought in 2011 that he would have been still significant? And Welcome to My Nightmare 2 is just a great album because you think about sequels and sometimes
Yeah.
they're good and sometimes they're not, but Alice nailed it.
Now, sequels, to your point, Joyce, very true. The record companies and artists kind of shy away from that, because it's really kind of, if they sit a bar with the album that was original and then they try and do kind of a next sequel to that, you've got to exceed that, and that's kind of one of the things in life that we all have to do, if you really want to get ahead and do stuff, you've got to exceed what you just did. That's one of the things that we really focused on at Pacific Pioneer. We exceeded our own expectations a lot of times. And, Alice, I have a great relationship with him and Shep and the rest of the guys. And, we are talking now about this album. Well, Welcome to My Nightmare 2 was, the same year, back up a second, the same year, album cover number 12 that I created for Alice Cooper was a box set called Old School. And we had talked about that in one of the other shows. And that was an incredible endeavor. I mean, there were 30 pieces that we had to design separately and put them all into a meaningful box set. And it was really pretty hard to do. I think because of that, that feat that we accomplished very successfully. There was a lot of great feedback. Those box sets are going for $300 and $400, on eBay, and it's a highly regarded album, as was this album, Welcome to My Nightmare 2. I think that we got this album, well, number one, because we did Welcome to My Nightmare original, but number two, we did a great job with the box set. The same year, they both came out in 2011. And this cover was, in a way, an even bigger challenge than the box set. Because, well, first of all, I was working, when I did the box set, I worked with my normal guy who does all the finishing, and we've worked together for, since 1984. And on this album, and who did all the finishing and all the computer work and stuff. And I would give sketches to. We were like an old married couple. We dotted each other's I's and crossed each other's T's and finished each other's sentences. And now I'm in a situation where Alice and Shep reached out to me to do this Welcome to My Nightmare 2, and Bob Ezrin as well. I was on a phone call with Shep and Alice and Bob Ezrin, the original three guys that we worked with, since school's out. And now here we are years later, and I'm, talking with these guys, and they're talking about, this Welcome to My Nightmare 2, and they felt that it would be, even though it's a sequel, it's kind of risky. They felt very, very comfortable, in everything that they've been doing, obviously, and Bob too. I mean, it wasn't like he only produced Alice Cooper. He produced a lot of major bands, including Pink Floyd. The Wall, he did The Wall for them, and a bunch of other major bands, Deep Purple and stuff, and really a great friend. And so they talked to me about doing this album cover, and it was actually a package. It's a double record set. And the thought was initially, okay, cool, we'll get Drew Struzan, who did the original Welcome to My Nightmare piece. And in fact, let me put that up. We'll re-engage with him and have him do this sequel to this album. We were talking about the original Welcome to My Nightmare piece that we did in 1975. And now here we are in 2011, and we want to do a sequel to that. And the first thought was, we'll get Drew involved. And, but Drew was really, really well known now in the movie poster business. Didn't really have a lot of heart for it. And his, the price would have been outrageous. Plus, he was really swamped with other work. So what happened was, in the interim, Shep and Alice had been working with this girl who named Karen Kroncher, and she did a lot of the posters and stuff for Alice. She had this kind of heavy metal look to everything that she did. Very, very complicated pieces with, a lot of metal and fire and, brimstone, and a really great designer, but really much kind of like a renegade. And for me, being so used to doing work with Bob, it was a real learning process for both of us because she was really doing whatever she wanted to do. And, if you liked it, you use her. If you didn't, so you go somewhere else. And she had that kind of attitude, which is really great. I mean, I kind of had a little bit of that myself back in the early 70s with Pacific Pioneer when, you thought that everything you did was great and people would just love you for everything. And, it just wasn't like that. So, but meeting her, Shep put me together with her. She was in down near Highland and La Brea there in Hollywood. So I went over to her studio, and her stuff was really, really excellent. And we talked about doing this album for Alice. And and because we couldn't get Drew, we decided to take pieces, elements from the first one, and distort them. And my first thought was the portrait of Dorian Gray, because Alice seemed to always be Alice, and somewhere he was deteriorating in a closet put away in a painting. So that was kind of the basis for the whole concept of what we did with Welcome to My Nightmare 2, where we used, instead of Drew's illustration of Alice, we used the photograph of Alice with the infamous bloody T-shirt and the studded hat and the gloves, and just that whole look that he was going to be then using in his show and his tour. So we took the lettering that I had already done for him, the logo, not the one from the Welcome My Nightmare album, but I had created a Alice Cooper logo for him. And this we took, and it was mainly straight line art. And what we did was we made it look like blood and dripping and stuff. And so that really worked out good. They really liked it. And so what we ended up doing was, inside this album, there is a pamphlet, and I think it's like 6 pages, and then there's a front and a back cover that we did to that, and I'll go into that here in a second. But because we were really sort of hoping to get Drew, and sort of this sort of threw a wrench in the works, but we worked through it. And Karen was really great. I mean, she was really awesome on the computer. Everything she did kind of looked the same, which was kind of weird for me because I try to do everything that looked different. But she had really built a look and feel for her work on what she was doing. So we decided it was kind of like East meets West for me. Taking what she was able to do was something totally different than what I had been doing and Bob had been doing together, and me individually, and making it work for me. So it was like this learning process to see how she was able to do stuff that was unlike anything that we had ever done, which was really amazing for me because this album was really unlike any album cover that I had done. And like I had mentioned, in the inside there is a booklet. This is the front and back cover of the booklet. On this side here is the front cover. The back is over here, and inside were all these individual pages with the lyrics. So we created this really, melting, steaming hot, demonic kind of image of Alice as a skeleton head, and then even more crazy with the lettering. And then on the other side over here, you see that the thing is burning. It's burning across. So across the page. And if you look closely, you'll see there's flies in there. I mean, it's a really disturbing cover and back cover. But we used the insects that we had on the Welcome to My Nightmare, the original album. You'll see them in the background of this. And I'll send you these images for you to have our neighbors be able to see better. But the whole thing is just kind of Dorian Graying away, and I think that it was a perfect element to do for this album. So we go from this front cover to a series of pages that look like this with the lyrics. And there's, coffee stains, there's stains, there's blood stains. And what I did here was I was able to work once we knew where all the copy was going to go, I was able to create these pages using a paper and splattering blood and coffee stains and stuff on it because I knew where the lyrics were going to be and I didn't want to cover any of the lyrics. So sort of designed around them. There were a series of these pages that we did, and I'm going to just briefly go through them, and you'll see that the method to the madness, so to speak. So there's the first two songs, and then it goes to the next spread. And the way the songs laid out were completely different than the one before it, which was this one. So I had to, like I said, it really helped to have the type set. And that's the wonderful thing about computers these days. Had this been done back in the 70s, I'd have to go to a type house and have it set and glue it up and do this whole thing. This way, we just did it on the computer, and I got the printed pages and blew them up and knew where the type was going to fall so that I could do all the blood and stuff around it. So, you know, this is the second spread. Here's the third spread.
And one even looks like Christmas to me.
Yeah, huh? Yeah, like a bloody, like Friday the 13th Christmas Day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really, like I said, the whole package is kind of disturbing, and Alice loved it. I mean, he really thought this was better than the original one, and in a lot of ways, it was its own task. I mean, Welcome My Nightmare was pretty easy. I did some lettering. We came up with this idea of Alice being the ringmaster, and you know, we took some shots up at the house in Mulholland of Alice with the hat posing so Drew could do that original painting, and so that was pretty easy. And the insect background, because when he did the illustration, we looked at it. I mean, there's him in this triangle, but there's all this other space, all this real estate around him that we needed to populate. So we created this. Drew did this beautiful illustration of these insects in a pattern, and we just stepped and repeated it and made this pattern out of it. Well, we did the same thing because I had the artwork, and that was the other thing. I had a lot of this artwork, like for the bug pattern and stuff like that, that we could just take a scan of and start distorting. So there's this one. Here's another spread.
You know, a lot of these shapes, you know, come in when you look at them, they tend to, I guess it's in the eye of the beholder. It almost looks like it's an insect climbing on a tree.
Yeah, huh? I mean, yeah, especially on the side over here, right?
Yes, yes.
This one here.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
Yeah, yeah. And then other things like this one, you know, with creepy crawly things. So, you know, it's, yeah. And if you look close, there's like spiders, and there's, you know, flies. I mean, everything that's just repulsive that we could think of, we put in there. And so then this is another spread. This is another one. And again, you know, just really crazy stuff. And the paper that I used was aged. So, because we didn't want it to look new, we wanted everything to look like it was disintegrating. You know, here we are, going from 1975 to 2011, and Alice hasn't changed that much, but everything else did, you know. And again, that was kind of the concept that we kind of laid into with this, and we carried it across to the record labels too. It was a double record set, a lot of songs, a lot of great music, and Bob Ezrin, you know, was just brilliant with his production and playing piano and a lot of the vocals and stuff without background stuff. Alice and Bob are an amazing creative team. They truly are. I mean, they're like peas and carrots, those two, you know, and they do a lot of writing together. I mean, they you know, arrange and produce. I mean, they've taught each other, you know, which is kind of neat because that was what Pacific Eye was all about. And even though this album wasn't done with anybody that was the original team of Pacific Eye, Bob Inglesiepen became an employee at Pacific Eye and an artist at Pacific Eye later on in 1980. By then, all the original people had gone except for me and my partner, Tony. And I had started building a stronger, you know, constantly, just like any sports team, you know, when the older pros retire or injured, you got to have young blood in there to really sort of keep current. I mean, the Rolling Stones do that. Everything they've never used, we've talked about this, they never use the same people twice. Hockney Diamonds, that guy won't ever do another thing for him because they stay current, they stay fresh. They exceed people's expectations by not giving them what they expect. And I guess, one of the things that we tried to do at Pacific Pioneer was that same thing. Try and not give them what they expect. This shouldn't look like the album that was before it. It doesn't sound like the album before it, so why should it look like the album before it? So we tried to constantly keep that position on everything that we did, whether it was music or corporate. We kind of really strive to do that a lot. So and again, this was carried over on, it was a double record set. We carried it over to the labels. And then we did another thing that went with this album was a poster. And it was a double-sided poster. And on this side over here, you really sort of see the Dorian Gray kind of aspects where everything is just melting and just disintegrating. And there's insects and just rot. It looks like rot. It's like when I did the old school box set, when I came to Alice with the logo with the apple and the snake winding around it, and the apple looked too fresh. So he said, we're rotten apples. You should make half of this rotten, which is what I did. So that logo that I did for that old school box set that's etched on the cover of that is half the apple is ripe and the other half is rotten. And we sort of kind of, again, knowing him, this is album 13 that I did for them. And hopefully there'll be at least one or two more, I'm hoping. But if not, 13 is not a bad number. I can live with that. And this was the double-sided poster that we did that was also an insert inside the album. On the other side, you see Alice here, sort of like the Prince of Darkness kind of thing, with the cane and it's kind of an oil painting. We had a picture of him, and we sort of, Karen, like I said, she was amazing on computer and doing this kind of stuff. She put all that together just unbelievably, and I really enjoyed working with her. It was the only time we had a chance to work together, but she still does a lot of the costumes that Alice uses and a lot of the different posters and things that she creates are very much for him. She also does work for Rob Zombie. She's got that kind of look, that really kind of current heavy metal, Iron Maiden, kind of look to the stuff that she does. It's definitely worked for her. And I think it really worked well on this album. I mean, it truly did.
And it comes right out at you. I love the design. It really represents, I think, what Alice was conveying in a lot of those songs.
Yeah, he was. And again, there's a lot of music here. A lot and memorable talk about music. The album did really well. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it was the highest rated one that he had since Trash or one of those albums, but it was up there in the charts all over the world, this album. And again, like I said, it was a real task to do because it was kind of out of my normal wheelhouse. I hadn't really even done anything like this before, but what a great experience it was for me and Karen too. We both learned from each other. And like I said, she's a very successful designer. She does fashion. She's very diverse in the where she puts her stuff. But again, it's always that heavy metal kind of look and feel. We also did some different single sleeves. We did Runaway Train. We did a really cool kind of a compilation of a train with all this craziness and skull. Looked like something for Lemmy's group, Motorhead, something like that. She's Joe Patagno and her would get along really well because they sort of have that same kind of, heavy metal kind of look to the stuff that they do. Very busy. Her stuff is very busy, but that's okay because it all kind of comes together. And I think that the job that she had done, on this album, I mean, was really great. And again, we just took the shots of Alice because we didn't have a budget and Drew wouldn't do it. So, this was, and it actually, I think it worked out better. I really do. As much as I love Welcome My Nightmare, and that oil painting, it's a beautiful oil painting, 30 by 40 oil painting. It's magnificent. But this one has a whole different kind of feel to it. And it should have. It would have been wrong to have him do another illustration for this. It really needed to be not what people expected. Again, talking to that point, like give them something they don't expect. That's how you exceed their expectations. You under promise and over deliver. That's something that I learned early on in my career. If because everybody says, "Oh, we're going to exceed your expectations." Sometimes you do, most times you don't, and then there's always the excuses that come in. What I always did was under promise and over deliver, and that's how you get them talking about you. That's how you get them to remember you and use you again. And then that's when the talent part of it comes into play as well. I've been very blessed, Joyce, because I've been able to have a life beyond Pacific Eye and Ear and the original team that we had there. Because I'd say for about 5 years, from like 1972 to 1977, was our best years, and we had done 189 album covers in that period. Since then, I've done now 100, 250, but we were on fire. The company was great. The artists were amazing, and it never really ended up quite the same. But then neither did the company. The company was evolving, and we talked about this, how it was evolving, and we would have almost become antiquated had we kept the team that we had there originally. So there was a reason why. Everything happens for a reason, and it was time for change. And we were very comfortable. I mean, we had made a name for ourselves, not just in the music business, but the corporate world had started to come alive as well. And at first, it was an issue that we did the rock and roll. Later, it became a real asset. But it was time for change. And, it's very hard to change sometimes, especially as you get older, especially if you're successful, which is what the Beatles taught us. They changed the way we listen to music, the way music was presented and created by the musician, not what we expected. Each album that they did was different than the one before it, and we weren't ready for that as music fans, but we came accustomed to it, and then it became the way to do it. There's always these groundbreakers. I think Pacific Eye and Ear, in its time, was really one of those groundbreaking companies. There weren't very many, there were only a handful, but we became right there in the top, and it's and what amazes me about this album is it's so good, and it wasn't done when we did the original one. It was done by completely different people, so all the way around.
Yeah, I was really astounded because what I had to remember was 2011, and we're into the computer age, and how you really made that work. And with all the bloody stains and the way you had that arranged. Fantastic. Well, Ernie, it's our mind meld time.
Oh man!
I've been looking forward to this.
This one is a tough one, Joyce. This is a tough one because there's so many to choose from, and all of them are good. Yeah. They are. They really, for me, okay. And I don't know whether this is going to link up with you, but "I'm Made of You" is really, for me, the outstanding cut, and "What Baby Wants." Those two cuts are exceptional and are right up there with the whole album. It's really hard. I don't think you could go wrong picking a song. So what did you have in mind?
All righty, you know which one that really got me, and I love it. To me, it is so Alice. Disco Bloodbath Boogie Fever.
You know what? I was going to choose that one, but then I thought, oh man, she's going to run into trouble with trying to play that song. So I swear to God, that would have been my second choice.
Oh, isn't that
what baby?
Alice kind of raps on that. There's a little bit of a rap on there.
Yeah.
And, I had this vision come into mind when he was, because to me, Alice just like lets it all hang out. I was thinking of him and Frank Zappa being on stage, because Frank Zappa did Dance in Full, which was like a little bit of a parody, a satire on disco. And I'm like, Alice and Frank Zappa, that would have been the dream team.
Yeah, well, they were, he was signed to Bizarre Records, which was Frank's label.
Whoa.
And that's when he met Shep, because Shep was at a party and Janis Joplin was there, and Jimi Hendrix, and he and Jimi Hendrix started talking, and Jimmy said to him, "You're Jewish," and he goes, "Yeah, I am." He goes, "Well, you should be the manager." And Shep goes, "All right, who should I manage?" And he said, "Well, there's this group that's signing to Bizarre Records called Alice Cooper, and they need a manager." The rest is history. They were ready to give the group $30,000 for all the publishing rights. And Shep said, "Give us," he met with them before they went, and he went to Bizarre, the meeting with Frank Zappa and them, and they thought for sure, because the group was hungry. I mean, they were living off a happy hour in the bars down on Sunset Strip. That's how they were existing. I mean, they were, and on top of changing their name from Nas to Alice Cooper, they were really struggling. And so they dangled the $30,000 number. And Shep said, I'll tell you what, give us $3,000 and we'll keep all the publishing and we'll deliver you a finished product.
Yes.
And that, Shep Gordon, I think I told you, and I'm sure he said this before, the three things that the music industry taught him: always ask for the money, never forget to ask for the money, and always remember to never forget to ask for the money. Those are the top three things. And he's made everybody a lot of money, including himself. And God bless him, because he's a genius. He is our modern day P.T. Barnum.
He sure is. Already, and another one, Ernie, that really got me, and being a person who loves caffeine, I had to say caffeine was talking to me.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
It was really great working on this album with them, Joyce, because I've been asked many, many times, which group out of all the ones, it's Alice Cooper, hands down, over all of them. Even though I love everyone that I did, and I'm good friends with a lot of the people still, this album and Alice Cooper in my life has really stood out. I mean, if it wasn't for him and Shep, we would have never been as successful as we were. And I owe them a lot. And that's why anytime they need anything, I give them whatever they want. Unlike a lot of people that have, been paid in the past to do stuff and they want to be paid again. I'm being paid every day. I'm being blessed and being able to talk about these kinds of products that we created, for him. And again, it isn't like, and here's the other amazing thing, it isn't like this album was any less than the albums and the work that we did as the core team at Pacific Pioneer. I've only gotten better. And the only difference between, and just like Alice, the only difference between me and the Pacific Pioneer and the team I had is that now it's just me. The only thing that's different between Alice and the group that there was originally is it's just him. And ever since Welcome My Nightmare, this album was very important for all of us. And we had talked about that. We had talked about in that initial call about how important this was to each and every one of us. So there's a lot of great memories here, a lot of great music to listen to. And again, so grateful for you and the fans and the people on our block. It's awesome. And Christmas is coming up.
Oh, I know. We've got a lot of great things planned. Let me also compliment you too on one of the designs, because as I mentioned, caffeine is one. I noticed you put like a blood coffee ring around there. And that one really caught my eye. If you were a coffee drinker, lots of times when you lay your coffee down, you don't use a coaster.
It usually leaves a brown stain, but this one has a blood stain. So there's something going on here.
Brilliant.
So, each one of these pieces was pretty good size, and it was cut out, and I knew exactly where, like I said, the lyrics were going to be. And so I splashed the red and all that stuff and put the rings down and work in these stains that you see, these smudges and stuff. All that's done by hand. And then we just shoot it and scan it and put it in. It was an amazing project. This whole project took a couple of months to do. And
I can believe you.
In a lot of ways, it had as much of a challenge as did the box set. But again, it's awesome. And thank you so much, Joyce. God bless you. And I'm glad everybody at Thanksgiving, it's been great. And even though we're a couple of weeks later, but get ready for the Christmas show. And hang on, because I want to talk to you after we hang up. Can you do that for a second?
I think I can do that, Ernie. Well, I wanted to give a peace out to everyone.
Double V8 makes a W. All right.
Hey, it sure does.